Okay, welcome to part 3, the last part in our lecture for week 5. So now we're going to talk about the broken windows theory and preventions of crime. So this was a social psychology experiment conducted by Philip Zimbardo. Now I would really highly recommend that you remember that name because you're going to hear his name an awful lot in your studies. We use him quite a bit because he's done a lot of very interesting stuff that you probably wouldn't get ethical approval to do anymore. He's most famous for the Stanford Prison Experiment, which we will discuss, and you will see some things about in upcoming courses, especially those that you do with me, because we look at him quite a bit. In this experiment, he got 2 vehicles. They were exactly the same, and he placed one in each of a good and one in a bad neighbourhood. And then they waited and watched. So the vehicle was made to look abandoned and just left there. Now, normally this is where we would have a bit of a discussion about what do you think happened and why do you think it happened. But seeing as we're not all together anymore, I will tell you what happened. But have a think about what would you think would happen to the abandoned car left in the good neighbourhood and the abandoned car left in the bad neighbourhood. Well, this is what happened. In the bad neighbourhood, offences commenced within 10 minutes and the car was entirely stripped within 1 day. So within a day, gone. In the good neighbourhood, it sat there untouched for a whole week with the hood up. Somebody came past and put the hood down during a rain shower, and once it was touched, the windows got smashed and others joined in. So it took a week, but once it started with a fury. So how can we explain this? Well, it's called the broken windows theory. The broken windows theory really applies more to really big cities like New York, but Sydney, Melbourne, and even Brisbane are now big cities. And it was developed by Wilson and Kelly in 1982. So the whole feeling or the whole thing behind this theory is that if you have a community that looks like it's been abandoned and gives the impression that no one cares and no one is watching, then crime will increase. So if the buildings look run down, there's graffiti that's not cleaned up, as I just said, it smells bad because people pee everywhere and nobody cares. If the grass is all overgrown, there's dead cars everywhere, it just gives the feeling that nobody cares. And it then becomes vulnerable to criminal invasion and they will move in. Okay, so norm setting and signalling disorder leads to crime. And that is what broken windows theory is about. So small signs of disorder such as trash, vacant lots with lots of rubbish, vacant houses that are vandalised. If there is nobody to fix the broken windows, it sends a message that people don't care. So what will happen? Vandalism, prostitution, drug dealing, houses become drug houses, homeless people sleep there, drunkenness and fires. Think about where you live. Have you ever seen any disorder in your neighbourhoods that is like this? And here's an example, okay? So small vandalism can lead to urban decay, which can lead to crime. I don't know about you, but this bottom one in the middle is scary that even anyone would even live there, but people often do. Top 10 most dangerous cities in the US, violent crime per 100,000 people. So remember, we've just discussed in the last couple of weeks how crime is measured per 100,000. And look what's at the top, Flint. Flint, with all their bad water and everything, is at the top of the list. So small signs of disorder can lead to large signs of decay, which can lead to criminal activity. I mean, you can imagine these being great places for doing drug deals because you can't imagine the police would ever want to go there. All right, so now we're going to move from the environment to the situation to try and make crime less likely to happen. For example, we're talking here about locking your car. But how can we stop people from committing crime? Do increased penalties work? Do you think when someone is committing a crime, they're thinking, oh, Now, let me think about this. If I hit this guy over the head with a baseball bat, that could be considered to be a weapon. So it becomes an aggravated assault. Gee whiz, I could get 14 years for this. No, I think I'll just keep walking and not worry about it. Okay? Increased penalties don't work. People don't think about the penalties before they commit a crime. So it's much harder to think about prevention, but it's even harder for murder than stealing because people do not think about the outcomes when they kill someone. We can make things harder to steal by using CCTV, by having these guardian shoppers who are wandering around watching, but we can't make it harder to murder. So it is very hard to prevent interpersonal crime. Okay? There are two ways to prevent crime, situational and personal. Okay, you remember when in Queensland they introduced the lockout laws? So the idea was to reduce alcohol-fueled violence. Has it worked? You could point at the fact that the government has said that the nightclubs could open after COVID as long as they didn't have any dancing on the dance floors. Well, fancy telling people going to a nightclub that they can't dance. Did it work? No, it didn't. And now they look like they may even lose the ability to have people there again. So, you know, it makes it really, really hard. It's much harder to prevent criminal behaviour than target situational crime by making it more risky and less rewarding. So make it more risky for them to commit the crime and make it much less rewarding, so they're not going to get as much. Okay, so reducing violence in and around nightclubs and bars, reduce the alcohol service hours, reduce pub hopping, which was one of the things that the lockout laws was trying to stop. Provide sober up centres, closed circuit TV and improve street lighting. A lot of those things we've already got. I would think that you would find it quite scary to go and sit down at Royal Brisbane Hospital or Gold Coast University Hospital on a Friday or Saturday night and see how many people come in from the nightclub precincts who've been involved in fights or they've just had so much alcohol that they're risking alcoholic poisoning. So we need to make sure that we put things in place to actually make it much more risky to commit crime. Prevent criminal behaviour. Well, let's look at the underlying social causes of offending. Why are people offending? Look at the risk factors for them and the attitudes and behaviours of those who are at risk. Is there poor parenting and supervision? School failure. Promote protective factors such as good parenting and school success. Make it cool to do well at school. Oh, I think I've just come up with a byline for them. It is cool to do well at school. Target the potential offender and not so much the crime, okay? So we're targeting the social causes of crime. Changing an environment can be done overnight. We can change an environment. We can put up more street lights. We can put up closed circuit TV. That's the easy one to do. We can do that one fairly easily. But changing criminal behaviour takes much longer and much more work when we're talking about children who are growing up in families where crime may just be the acceptable behaviour for their family. So there's primary prevention and there's secondary prevention. So primary prevention, stop the problem before it even happens. So reduce the opportunities for them to commit crime and strengthen the community and social structures. And we're focusing here on social and situational factors. So we want to look at the risk factors for children. We can go right back and provide programs for preschoolers and work with preschoolers and their families to try and remove those risk factors that could cause them to start committing crime when they become teenagers, okay? So school-based programs, community-based programs to target the people. Situational crime prevention is looking at the environment, so the design of buildings and landscapes and the products that we purchase. Think about when you were at school, did you have the, Harold the giraffe coming out and doing some classes with you or doing some presentations about drugs. Many of my students in the past have remembered Harold the Giraffe coming out. School-based cops, many schools now have school-based cops, school-based police officers that are there to try and build those really good relationships with police so that the kids don't feel so, scared of or quite aggressive towards. Some of the really big high schools actually have a full-time police officer at the school who's there 5 days a week, and that is their job, is just being at the school. So secondary crime prevention is now starting to work on those who've actually already either been in trouble or at really high risk of being in trouble. So this is targeted at specific people or groups. So we could be looking at foster kids who could be at a really high risk of embarking on a criminal career. Kids with parents in prison, which is a really known high risk factor for getting involved in criminal behaviour, and those who live in high risk areas or with high risk people. So if you've got kids who are living with parents who've got a drug problem or are known to the police and committing crime, then they are really high risk. So they come under what's called secondary crime prevention to try and either stop them from doing something again or stop them from becoming started in the first place. And then we've got tertiary crime prevention. This one really is aimed at those who've already been in trouble. Okay, so after the offending has happened, it's there to prevent future offending. So it could be something so simple as someone who's got drink driving convictions can't start their car without blowing into the bag. And of course, we all know that they will find ways around that by getting somebody else to blow. But at least it's trying to put stuff into place to stop them from committing further crime. Okay, so we need to be working with these people. We've got things that we can use with kids, such as youth justice, youth justice conferencing. It comes under a few names. Wearing of ankle bracelets, but mainly we want to use community-based sanctions and treatment interventions to stop these people from reoffending. Okay, so here is an example of a building that has taken into account at its design environmental things that can be done to make sure that people understand what's going on. So for instance, let's just talk about it. Low landscaping offences. So when you've got these hedges along here and you've got the fences in between each unit and a path that goes in, well, if I was walking down the street and I saw that, that would say to me, well, okay, that's the boundary of their property. I don't go past that unless I'm going up to knock on the door or I have a good reason to be there. So you don't use it as a shortcut to go around the corner, cutting across their yard. Okay, we've got the paving and architectural treatments to define public and private zones. Okay, so the path that leads up to the front door shows you where that property is. Porches and sidewalk encourage interaction between neighbours, so people can come and talk to each other from over the fence or whatever. So they get to know their neighbours, which is always good. These hedges are kept really low so people can't hide behind them. There's large windows that promote casual supervision of the sidewalk so people can see out and see what's going on outside. This is like a neighbourhood watch type situation. And also the trees. The trees themselves have not got low bushy scrub right down to the ground. Everything's up high, so it's only the tree trunks. And that stops people from having hiding places. And then there's a street light, so that we make sure that the street is well defined or well lit so that people can walk safely. Okay, and here's, for the last slide, an example how it was done in Memphis in Tennessee. So these are two before. So before, in these two blocks, there was really high rates of crime. I mean, to me, this doesn't look very inviting. I don't think I'd really like to go there. Certainly wouldn't let my children play there. but I can't even really see what's off limits because there's a street behind there, there's a street here. This looks like a public thoroughfare. So what did they do? Well, they put this big gate up with the arbor and they've done some landscaping. And if you can see down, you can see that there are paths that now go in to the buildings, to the front doors of the units, so that you can see where the front doors of the units are. It's been painted as well. This tree over here on the left has been trimmed right back, so there's no hiding underneath it, no little hiding places. And on the side of the block, there's been windows put on the stairs so people can see out and see who's coming up the stairs. So it's a lot more secure and people aren't going to just use it as a thoroughfare. With this one here, they put up a fence. They painted it a nice light colour so it looked a lot more inviting. They put arches over the door. I know this is a bit hard to see, but there's arches there over the doors to show where the front doors are for these actual properties. And the tree, again, was trimmed right back and all the lower hanging foliage was gotten rid of so that there's nowhere for people to hide. And would you believe that after they made these very, very simple changes, street crime went down? So it was a bit lower just from making those few changes. So as you can see, environmental or crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED, it's very easy to put in place. Really, a lot of this stuff could have happened in a couple of weeks. It's much, much harder to change criminal behaviour though. And I don't think you would not get that. All right, that's the end of part 3 and that's the end of the lecture. I'm trying to keep these as brief as possible to keep you going. And I will see you on Friday afternoon in class for, I don't know yet because I haven't done it. We'll see what we're going to do. I'll find something interesting. Okay, bye everyone.